What is up, everybody, from inside the dorm room right here at St. John Fisher College? Look what I found wandering around outside. I had to run him out his credential. We got it right here, ready to roll, ready to rock. What is up, Ryan Talbot? How are you?
I'm doing well. Excited to be here tomorrow, Sunday, and a few other times over camp to kind of do this thing with you.
Yeah, this was the most action-packed day of training camp so far. Now, we've only had two, but a lot of plays to dive into over the course of the next 30 to 40 minutes. We are going to bring you today's Shout Buffalo Bills podcast, brought to you by the Shout Buffalo Bills Insider Text Group. Check out this chat line, Ryan. We're nearing 150 subscribers already on the Insider line, and they already know a lot of what we're going to talk about today because we've been texting it out throughout the course of the day. All you have to do to sign up is type this into your phone on your computer, joinsubtext.com/shout Buffalo Bills, or text 716-528-6727. Again, that's 716-528-6727. Just send a text. It'll give you the directions. You could sign up. You can you could become an insider, and then you get everything first, Ryan. It's great.
It's phenomenal, Matt. You know, I've been seeing a lot of the new interactions coming in. We've been chatting back and forth. I've learned about some Bills backers bars out in Portland, Oregon, and all these other places where there are Bills fans who are interacting with us. They're loving all the camp updates. We've loved the interactions. Get on board with it, Bills Mafia.
Yeah, it's been kind of a crazy day around the NFL too. Before we get into, the practice, we could probably start off with a couple of AFC injuries that are eye-opening. We don't have all the details of it, but two guys carted off the field at practices around the AFC. Cincinnati's Joe Burrow, Jalen Ramsey down in Miami. I mean, obviously Burrow, he's in a handful of guys, 3 or 4, that are probably the most important to their team in the NFL. I mean, what do you think Cincinnati fans are feeling right now?
Yeah, I'm sure it was a stunned silence when that happened at practice. And, there's good video out there on social media, Matt, where he's running and all of a sudden he kind of pulls up lame and he goes down to the ground and he's holding his calf. With the case of Jalen Ramsey, he was covering Tyreek Hill and came down and grabbed his knee. The one thing I saw a few former players in the NFL mention on social media today is the cart is not necessarily an indicator of a serious injury because of where the players have to go. It's to avoid going up and down hills, things like that. But knee injuries, calf injuries, I mean, those are pretty serious. When you read the reports, when you hear everything going on, it's going to be something to monitor. And those are two big players for their teams, as you mentioned.
And also with, Garrett Wilson in New York, a little bit of an ankle tweak. He goes out the field. Robert Saleh says that he's going to be okay. But, man, this is the kind of stuff that happens all the time. And, you think we heard from Gabe Davis today. I thought it was a really good session. I'm going to be writing about him at the site later tonight. And he was talking about last season and how much that early ankle injury affected him. So these early season injuries, I mean, if you don't take care of them the right way, they could turn into kind of nagging things. So we'll track that around the AFC over the next couple of days. But let's get into the Bills. And obviously I put together my observation story. You can go read that over at Syracuse.com, NewYorkUpstate.com right now. Where do you want to start, Ryan?
Let's start with this rookie class, man. I think two of the rookies at the top had a pretty nice day today.
Yeah, I want to start with O'Cyrus Torrence. Elena just texted me and said, "Oh my gosh, Ryan's in the house. You just snuck in here." She's probably going to kind of come down and want to say hi. Ryan's popular when he comes to town for the for all the games in the press box. So yeah, I want to start with O'Cyrus Torrence because the first thing we go out on the practice field today, and as I texted out to the insiders, what time was that? About 10:30 a.m. this morning, that O'Cyrus Torrence was running with the ones out at practice. And this was a big development. I thought, okay, we're probably going to have to get to pads before they kind of give him that opportunity. But I think, to me, that's a big step that they're kind of saying, okay, we've liked what you've done to this point. We're going to give you an opportunity like they have with a couple players at middle linebacker. We'll get into that later. But Torrence today, there was one rep specifically that I highlighted in my column, and it was a one-on-one against Ed Oliver. And if you're talking about, good on good, 1 versus 1, that to me is the matchup where I'm diving in head first. And as soon as I saw them lined up across from each other, and it wasn't even a play that ended up materializing into anything. I think it might have been an incomplete pass or a short shuffle pass or some type of deal. I don't even remember the play. But it was the one-on-one rep between Oliver and Torrance that was really interesting. Osiris Torrance had to get into his position really quick because I thought Oliver showed the get off the line. He was going to be a problem. He was going to be in the backfield. He had a sack on the day. I can't remember who he was working against, but on this particular rep, he could not get past Torrance anything that he tried. It was like multiple different things. And again, they're not in pads. You don't want to overreact. Later in practice, a good rep for Torrance. Later in practice, they flipped things around and they were shuffling guys throughout practice. So Bates had some run with the first team at right guard. Torrance had some run with the first team. But later, they shifted Torrance to the left side. He was in at left guard. And because Connor McGovern had been at left guard throughout the day with the ones, they moved him over to center, which he has a little bit of that in his bag, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I like this. I like that Sean McDermott and this coaching staff, they're moving some players around early. They're probably seeing who can handle what role, what job. And obviously you have Mitch Morris at center in Buffalo. You have Ryan Bates, who's more than capable. But, hey, why not see what McGovern can do there, too, if push comes to shove. There's so many good guards competing for 2 spots on this team. Maybe he ends up being a backup at some point this season based on the contract. I'm not anticipating that, but you have to wait and see. But Osiris Torrance, going back to the main talking point here, it's always encouraging when you get a rookie, a guy that comes in, best pure guard in the draft class, a mauler in the run game, some questions about the pass protection, and he goes one-on-one with Ed Oliver early at camp and holds his own. That's a promising sign, Matt. And obviously once these pads come on in a few days, that's when things will get a little bit more serious. And if he holds his own there, he could be staking a claim for a starting job.
And Roy on YouTube says, boring until the pads come on. And most of the time I would agree with you, but I feel like there are, little decisions that happen. And this one is one in particular with Torrance that I think are interesting. Of course, like you can't extrapolate too much out from this when it comes to, how the competition is going to look once the pads come on or once the games start even, but it's what we have to work with right now. And I think he's facing an uphill battle of winning that job because Bates has been so entrenched in this system. He has all of these reps under his belt. And Ken Dorsey was talking about that. We're going to talk about Kincaid in a second. I don't want to fast forward too much, but it's actually like maybe a good transition point. Dorsey said that he might have misspoke a little bit when he talked about the role that they see for Kincaid. Remember when we kind of overreacted to that a little bit, maybe? He said that they know what they want to do with him, but they also don't want to put too much on his plate too early. They want to see what he can grasp, see what he can handle. And I feel like this was a perfect opportunity to see how Torrance reacts to that. And that one rep, I feel like that you could kind of put that in your back pocket as a rookie and lean on that when you're trying to find some confidence. The pads go on, Roy, we believe, on Sunday.
Yeah, so that's a good way of putting it, Matt. You don't want to put too much on the plates of these rookie players, and you test them out here and there. You see what they can do, what they can handle, what they can absorb, how quickly they're grasping the playbook. There's so much that goes into it. And again, these rookies, a lot of the times from year 1 to year 2 in their second year is when you see a big jump because they have a full off season to work on their weaknesses and things like that. But for Osiris Torrance to come in and look so good out of the gate, that's an encouraging sign. It's a check mark for this coaching staff as well. And then, Kincaid, who we're going to talk about here in a minute, going back to what Ken Dorsey said, they know what they want to do. As long as he keeps passing these tests at training camp over the summer, preseason, that role could end up being quite large for him as a rookie.
Let's get into Kincaid here. And I honestly, before we talk about Kincaid, we could talk about Dawson Knox, who I think today was a great reminder. First of all, we're seeing them on the field together a ton. And I think that that's really exciting for the fans that are in attendance, seeing kind of in their head what this offense could potentially look like with both of them on the field. And it was Knox making what I thought were the two of the bigger plays in practice today from a pass catching perspective. One was on the sideline, and it was a really tough catch. He had to go up on the ladder to make the catch, then get down, get his feet in bounds. And I joked with him during the press conference. He spoke to the media afterwards. It looked like Sean McDermott gave you the catch. And he said, I don't really care what Sean said. I think I made the catch. And so had a little bit of a laugh with that, but it was a really, really good play. And, I think we forget because of all the expectations for Kincaid, what Dawson Knox can do as a pass catcher. He came in as a raw blocker. Like his main skill set was going to be as a pass catcher. And I think he went out there and showcased it today. And then Kincaid comes in, makes a huge play. Allen has to go off script. It was very popular name in the chat, Puna Ford and Tim Settle, who were applying the pressure up the middle. It was Josh Allen getting out in the pocket, buying some time. Dalton Kincaid kind of streaks down the middle of the field, gets to an open spot. It's a big-time play. Tyler Rapp was in coverage. And, a lot of things were working for the offense today, and Kincaid was a big, benefactor, and Knox was kind of a propeller.
Yeah, and it's the saying, iron sharpens iron, and these are two really good tight ends on this team. You don't want to forget about Dawson Knox. I've seen some comments in the chat here and things like that, like how long until Dalton Kincaid's the number one tight end on this team? Like, let's not push things too far. Dawson Knox has been a game changer in the red zone for this team the past few seasons, and yes, you probably want to see him be a little bit more involved in the passing game or see him take his stats to the next level, and it hasn't happened yet in that regard. But he's been so important to Josh Allen's development in this league. He's been so good for this offense, and he's still going to have a pretty big role this year no matter what Kincaid does. So seeing these two working together, seeing them on the field together, even if you watch that new embedded, Matt, they're golfing together, they're hanging out together. Mm-hmm. These guys are getting, close, good friendship, and a lot of the times that leads to good things on the field as well.
Yeah, Knox was talking about the fact that, it's not forced. It's just part of the kind of vibe that Kincaid brings. And I think one of the things that I Brandon Beane's draft track record has been called into question quite a bit over the last, 2 or 3 drafts. And I think one pushback I'd give on that, and I think that there are some real question marks that I think have to pan out for, him to get some marks. But I do think he finds a pretty good quality of person in the draft pretty consistently. Yeah. Like if you look at the way that, guys compete, even Elam, for as disappointing as this probably has been throughout the process to not be able to take hold of that job, for him to kind of keep being a good teammate and keeping the work ethic, I think says a lot about him and who he is. But yeah,
it's important to get the character guys, the guys that are going to come in. They're not going to have any of those red flags that concern you. And then obviously you're right. He's been called into question about the development, the roles of these players, the lack of all pros, Pro Bowl honors, stuff like that. But that could be turned around this year. We just talked about 2 rookies. If these two have a great season, everyone's hyping up Brandon Beane again. Everyone's talking about how good this draft class is. That's all it takes is one good draft class, and people forget pretty quickly. You look at the Jets and Joe Douglas. Douglas had maybe the easiest job in the NFL last year, getting Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson, but people are hyping him up, singing his praises as this great drafting GM, and the classes before that were not very good for that matter. So like I said, it takes one draft class. It's encouraging what we're seeing with Kincaid. It's encouraging what we're seeing with O'Cyrus Torrence. And second-year guys like Kyrie Elam, good things still could be coming there too.
And I think that's a great point that you make, because really there should be some pushback on that, because he screwed up the most important one of those, and that was Zach Wilson.
Right.
And now you have to go and pay the money that, and obviously Aaron Rodgers is taking a sizable pay cut apparently, and that's all well and good. And they have pieces around him. But yeah, I just think that there's more that goes into building a healthy roster than just hitting on a couple of first-round picks. And, we'll see how it materializes. I mean, it's a year-to-year league, Ryan. I mean, we've seen really good seasons and guys kind of, come back to earth a little bit, maybe even improve a little bit. I think Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner are all pro caliber players. But man, how many blue chip players do you need to compete for a Super Bowl? I mean, more than 2.
Right.
And absolutely. So I think that he's done a pretty good job with that. All right, let's flip over to the defense. AJ's asking, a valued subscriber to the Insider Text Group, asks about Shane Ray flashing today. And I don't know if I'd say that he flashed. Some people saw a sack, and listen, sacks are hard because sometimes there's guys around the ball, the whistle blows, but the ball comes out anyway. So it's hard to really track that down. I didn't have him written down for a sack, but I did see him around the quarterback a couple times, but he's primarily playing on the third team. So, I mean, you got to take it with a grain of salt. Obviously he's Von Miller's guy. There's a lot of excitement from Von Miller talking about Shane Ray. And I think honestly, it puts a little bit of extra pressure. I mean, knowing that they have Kingsley Jonathan, a guy that's in the system, knows the defense, there's some excitement for what he is as a developing player. You have Boogie Basham. AJ Epinesa has been out there when Leonard Floyd hasn't been that second defensive end. It's been AJ Epinesa. So with a guy like Shane Ray, I think it pushes some pressure onto some of these younger players. If Ray inches his way up the depth chart and he starts to get some second team reps, first team reps, and maybe even that becomes very interesting.
Yeah, all of a sudden a veteran or a former draft pick could get knocked off of this roster before you know it. And Shane Ray's doing what he needs to do right now. And like you said, that's beating third team offensive linemen, things like that. That's what he should be doing. Early in his career in Denver, he put together some pretty solid seasons, and then wrist injuries really derailed his career. And it happened at the worst possible time. You have the pandemic, and he's out of the league at that point. He's rehabbing it, coming back, and there's really no suitors once he's ready to come back to the league. So he has to go to the CFL, and he had a nice season in the CFL. He's earned that right to get back into this league. He did the tryout. So it's definitely a feel-good story, a story of potentially of redemption, getting back into this league. But it's something like you said, where we need to see him do it consistently against the second team O-line, the first team O-line, before we really sit here and say, this is a guy that could really be stealing a roster spot here at the end of August.
We talked about the offense. Allen had himself a really nice day for the most part. There was a couple of bad throws. This one wasn't really one of them. Well, first of all, before I get to a couple of interceptions that I want to talk about and highlight, Stefon Diggs was money today. Like he was, at this point, we don't even have to really spend a lot of time on this. Stefon Diggs is Stefon Diggs. Exactly. It's to be expected. I had him tracked for 5 catches throughout the practice, and it's been so consistent. And I think, Josh Allen, as a Bills fan, sitting and watching him on Sundays, you take for granted just the easy button that Diggs can be on a day-to-day, play-to-play basis. There was one play where Josh Allen kind of just found him in a wide open spot, got him the ball quickly. He accelerated, ran away from the defense. There's like 5 guys around him at different points of the play, and he just takes it to the house for a touchdown. One play, Allen was looking for Trent Sherfield down the left sideline. He had beat Dane Jackson in coverage, and I think, I've noticed Dane get beat a couple times. He was a little competitive yesterday, but today I noticed him, on the bad end of a couple of plays, and I thought Josh Allen made the right decision trying to, fit a ball into Trent Sherfield who beat his man. The problem was in the deep left of the field was Jordan Poyer kind of lurking, read Allen, bursted to the scene, if you will, and just comes swooping in, makes a diving interception, runs it back a couple of yards. It was a really nice play and a reminder of what Jordan Poyer means to this defense.
Yeah, and it probably would remind Bills fans in attendance of maybe that Micah Hyde interception a few years ago in the playoff game against the Patriots, where it looks like it's open, and then boom, last minute, you have the safety swooping in, making a play. And, you don't want to forget how banged up this secondary was last year. You had Trey White returning at Thanksgiving from an ACL injury. You had a lot of young guys vying for that other spot in playing time, but the safety position, you lose Micah Hyde early. Jordan Poyer was pretty much wrapped in bubble wrap all season last year. The guy played through so many injuries. He missed a few games here and there. He was essentially a shell of what he's been because of his health. Still a very good player, don't get me wrong. But plays like this remind you of what this secondary can be like on a regular basis when everyone's healthy, and Poyer the Bills being able to get him to come back on a pretty team-friendly deal here when everyone thought he was going to be lost in free agency. It's a big deal for this Bills defense.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And Taylor Rapp's getting kind of worked in a little bit here and there. You even saw, Cam Lewis getting some reps at safety today. Damar Hamlin they're kind of shuffling the deck a little bit, which I think is interesting. Most years you don't see as much flipping around, but I think part of that is Sean McDermott, this is his defense now. He probably wants to get a look at how this looks in multiple layers over the course of the day. Another interception, 2 more. We'll go next to Cam Lewis, who in the 7-on-7 drill, I thought this was a little bit extra impressive because the 7-on-7 drill is built for the offense, right? Especially when you're not in pads. You're running away from guys. Usually there's no kind of traffic in there. But Cam Lewis just got dirty on this play and made things really difficult on the offense. I think Khalil Shakir was the target. Allen tried to fit it into him. Lewis gets into the play, kind of bats it up to himself and makes the interception. It was a big-time play for Cam Lewis, and one that I wrote about this too. You kind of forget about Cam Lewis a little bit, right? He's almost a forgotten man, but I think he's got the most proven versatility in terms of what he can do as a defensive player. Undrafted guy, Sean McDermott really likes that scrappiness to his game. He can play inside, he can play boundary, he can play safety. makes the play today. A nice feather for Cam Lewis.
Definitely a nice feather for him. And listen, there's competition at the bottom of that roster for the last few cornerback spots. So every time he makes a play like that, he's saying, I belong on this roster. I've been on this roster. No one else is going to take that job for me. And, we've talked about Cam Dantzler. He didn't practice today. We've talked about Jamarcus Ingram. And there's others too. There are guys fighting, Alex Austin. But when you have someone that makes the interceptions, it's comfortable in this defense. And if he keeps shining, one play like that, stacking those days, is going to land him on the bottom part of this 53-man roster. But it's still going to get him on those the active roster, is still going to possibly get him into action on Sundays. So this is a promising play for Cam Lewis. And again, I know last year someone said not great at not knocking down footballs. People still kind of hold that against him from the whole Minnesota Vikings game. But one play, one moment, good to see him have a great play here at camp.
Yeah, and obviously that's one that he's probably played over more times in his head over the course of the offseason than any fan has.
Yeah.
Because that was, he took that pretty hard. That was an emotional moment for him. But he's a guy, he reminds me a lot of Benford in that he's very competitive in these scenes, like at camp, even before the pads come on. If you want to get ultra competitive with, your fellow Bills fans, you want to join the Shout Buffalo Bills Insider text group. And you do so right now by going to joinsubtext.com/Shout Buffalo Bills. You get a 2-week free trial. What better time than in training camp to get the free trial? Don't want to go to the website? Just type in 716-528-6727. What's the number, Ryan?
716-528-6727.
I like that inflection that you use in your voice. You send a text to that number, anything. Just sign me up. You will get all the directions to sign up for the chat. And then you're going to get daily text messages from Ryan and I from the practice field. It's going to go all through the season long. Like when we go to the facility, when we go watch practice, you're going to get the first updates. Before I type anything on Twitter, I'm typing to our insiders.
Yeah. Like you said, training camp, preseason, roster cutdown time, Matt. There's always a few players that we get those the news on, hey, so-and-so is being let go. So-and-so has made the roster. Insiders are getting that before we put that out there on social media. They're going to get these reports daily. They're going to be in the locker room with us, essentially. It's a great, great deal. Bills Mafia, the fans already signed up, are loving it. Get in now.
I know. I mean, we're pushing already towards 200. So let's go. Sign up right now. At least do the 2-week free trial to see if it's for you. This thing is going to be rocking all season long, and it's great. Next up, I want to go to the middle linebacker competition because we talked a lot about Tyrel Dotson yesterday. And one of the interesting things that came from Brandon Beane was that these guys are going to each get their opportunities to play, right? And today we saw that play out. Terrell Bernard was basically the middle linebacker on the first team defense throughout practice. And he made a splash play and one that, for his predecessor in Tremaine Edmonds, that's something that everybody was waiting on over and over again. And like being in the right spot at the right time, making a play on the ball. He did that today. I want to talk about this middle linebacker and competition and how it kind of shakes out. But let's get to the play first. So Bernard is in coverage. It's the last 11-on-11 period of practice. And Josh Allen looks to try to find Khalil Shakir, who, by the way, in his own right, had himself a really nice day, continues to just be Mr. Steady, plays everywhere, can do a little bit of everything. I think that we're going to see both Deontay Hardy and Khalil Shakir in the slot. I think we're going to see Shakir everywhere. Like, I think they're going to find ways to get him on the field, but that's a conversation for maybe another day. So Bernard is in coverage, right? Picks up Shakir, plasters on him, and he is right on him throughout the course of the rep. Allen tries to fire it in there. It bounces off Shakir. Not a great play for him, but right place, right time. Bernard takes advantage of it, makes the interception. It's a really good play. And I think those are the kind of plays that you want to see Bernard stack. But I also think that this middle linebacker position or competition is now starting to become maybe one between two players, because AJ Klein was on the third team. I don't know how much he's factoring. They know what they have in him.
Right.
I think the competition is between Dotson, who knows the defense. What can he do given the opportunity? And Bernard, who spent the offseason really getting himself into a place of comfort, and he is looking the part. He, to me, was the guy that stood out in the spring, comes in here, runs with the ones, makes a big play on day 2 of training camp.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it is a two-man race at this point, especially when we were told Dorian Williams is going to be more so working on the outside linebacker spot. AJ Klein, like you said, they know what they have in him, and he's also an intriguing player where I feel like if the Bills wanted to, they could probably cut him at roster cut down, sneak him onto the practice squad as a veteran. He sat there on the open market for quite some time before the Bills brought him back. Give these young guys some run, even if it comes like a Balin Spector for late in this linebacker room. But for the actual starting job, I think it comes down to Bernard, who, like you said, maybe the player of the spring, because every time we talked about the spring practices, Bernard's name came up. He looked bigger. He was obviously still had the speed. He had a better understanding of this defense, and where he needed to be. When he was on the field last year, when he actually got that opportunity, he kind of looked lost at times, but that's common for rookies. He learned from it. He grew from it. And then obviously Tyrell Dodson, the guy that's been in the system, the guy that's been waiting for the opportunity. It seems like a two-man race at this point, Matt.
Yeah. And looking around the rest of the linebacker room, I think Matt Milano, he just does what he does. Like I don't it's kind of that Stephon Diggs model, right? I don't have to bring you
Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, we don't have to bring you a lot of the day-to-day stuff. Like there hasn't been any splash plays yet, but I'm sure that they will be coming, and we will talk a lot about that. Dorian Williams, I want to put one little nugget in here about him. There haven't been a ton of plays. We talked about the tipped the bat down that he had on a pass rush yesterday. It seems like he's playing fast. Like I wonder how much Sean McDermott is simplifying things for him and allowing him to go out there and just react and play fast and kind of showcase his speed, because it's evident. You see it out there on the practice field when he's doing it. I'm excited for you to take a look at him tomorrow and see what it looks like. Yeah,
I cannot wait either. Again, the intangibles are there. All the testing numbers, the athleticism, he's a matchup type linebacker. So whether it is playing on the outside, whether eventually he makes the move to the inside, he's an interesting prospect. And I like where he's at right now, where they don't have to rush him onto the field, but they're also letting him kind of play maybe a more simplified mode, like you said, and take advantage of that and show his athleticism, show what he can do in small sample sizes. So when that opportunity does eventually come, it feels like second nature to him.
Little side note here. Priority practice squad guy, Traven Howard, I think. Dude flies around. He's kind of like sneaky, just like in plays. Like you look up and all of a sudden, oh, boom, there's 45. And you're like, wait a second, what's he doing? What's he doing? We're watching so much Bernard, watching so much Dodson, but he keeps showing up. And so I think that's another name to kind of track over the course of the summer.
Yeah, former Ram linebacker, won a Super Bowl with Los Angeles, someone that is vying for one of those depth roles on this team, can play on special teams. And like you said, if he's always around the football, Matt, in the training camp practices during the preseason, this coaching staff is going to notice.
All right. We got a lot more to get to here. We're about 30 minutes in. We'll be with you for another 15 minutes or so. Catch of the day today. Let me bring that up.
Sure.
It could have been Dawson Knox. Shakir made a pretty good one as well. Quentin Morris. Wow. Right. This was a really good play. Actually, let me bring up my handy dandy notebook. Where did I put it? Where did I put my notebook, man?
Missing notebook.
Oh, no. Where's my notebook?
Oh, is it right there, actually? Under the shoe?
Yeah, it is. There it is. And it's open. Dude, the dorm room is a mess, everybody. I apologize for that. But let me get this open here because it was a really, really nice play. And see where I can find it here. You got some questions there while I look?
Yeah, actually, let's jump into some of these questions. We had a ton of Puna Ford questions, both in the insider text and I've seen on the chat here. What are your thoughts on Puna Ford thus far?
So again, like the thing about Puna that I want to like reiterate to people is that the pads aren't on yet, right? And so I have not noticed outside of an Ed Oliver play here or there. I mentioned earlier the Tim Settle and Puna combination pressure that they applied on Josh Allen. He's looked the part. He's looked good. He's a big dude. He eats up space for sure. So I think we're going to be, over the course of the summer, as the pads come on and we start to kind of see him be able to kind of assert his physicality a little bit more, we'll get to kind of learn a little bit more about him. But you could just tell by his face. Is that weird? Like, he's a business guy. Right. Like, he's an all business kind of guy. The way he walks around, the way that he is in the huddles. There haven't been any big time plays yet, splash plays, but he definitely looks the part.
Yeah. See, Balin Spector, he's been another guy that fans are asking about. Balin Spector has the intangibles, the athleticism. He tested extremely well coming into the draft last year. Not someone that we're expecting to be competing for a starting job here, but someone that could take one of those final roster spots at linebacker, be a core special teams player. Yes?
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt.
Okay. Some fun questions in here. Someone said if
he
we were
plays like his hair's on fire. Remember that.
Yeah, okay.
You don't know anything about that unless your beard hair was
maybe
on fire.
the beard. Yeah, sometimes that gets pretty long. Right. Some fun ones that I saw in the chat. It said if we were actually rooming in the same thing and there were bunk beds, who would have the top? It would be Parrino. I'm a big guy. I'd be afraid of it like collapsing and crushing him. You're going up on the top bunk.
Yo, after this, let's set these up. It's a great photo op.
It would be a pretty good photo.
Stay tuned to our Twitter account.
We'll do it.
Now, am I going to go on the top? Because if we're setting these up, it's going to be very fragile.
Oh, boy.
We have to be careful.
Yeah,
but
we don't need the cart coming here. We don't need the cart coming to the room.
Jeez, dude. Seriously. My wife does not want any part of that. All right. So the Quentin Morris, I found it.
Yeah.
It was an electric play. So Kyle Allen's looking over the 11 on 11, looks over the middle. Quentin Morris starts to get a little bit separation. Guess who just happens to be in the mix in the middle of the field? Traven Howard. Of course. He's always around the play when he's out on the field. I'm telling you guys, I noticed it in the spring. Haven't talked a lot about it, but we will. Yes. Step Brothers.
That's right.
It's a Step Brothers reference. Did we just become best friends? And once we do that, we'll have so much room for activities.
That's right. You got to go and ask for the permission first. I love that movie.
What are our top 3 activities that we could do if we were to make the bunk beds? We didn't do like mini sticks.
Yep.
Mini sticks are fun.
Yep.
Get a wiffle ball in here. I could throw some like
the
10-foot fastballs.
Okay.
No, I'm bringing the heat, dude. Like you're not going to get the off-speed stuff. You're going to get the fastballs high and tight.
All about it.
Anyway, so Quentin Morris gets some separation. The problem is Howard gets his hand on the ball. So now he's got to react, makes a one-handed catch. I mean, Dawson Knox was talking about it. It was super pretty. Quentin Morris versus Jace Sternberger. It's going to be like a low-key, interesting little battle to watch. The Bills keep 3 tight ends. Sternberger, Brandon Bean mentioned yesterday, they really liked him during the draft process. I think that actually came out. We talked about it on the show a couple days ago. But that's going to be one to watch because this was a guy that had some, real juice coming out in the draft, was picked ahead of Dawson Knox at the time, and kind of stylistically, I think is a better fit in terms of behind what. I don't think Quentin Morris is this like elite blocker. I think Morris is like kind of that athleticism type player too. But I think Morris has like the edge on him from a special teams perspective.
Special teams perspective, knowledge of this offense, played a bit in it last year too when the opportunity arose. Yeah, Sternberger though, to his credit, had a great season in the USFL. And I'm glad you mentioned the part about Brandon Bean saying that they liked him coming out. When these general managers, Matt, the front office personnel, when they do these interviews, top 30s, virtual interviews, whatever, they have like their own files and folders and notes on these players because they know that sometimes it's a player, there's no chance we're going to get them. Mm-hmm. It's a top 10 guy, top 15 guy, but when they become a free agent, we might be able to bring them in. Or maybe we won't get him in the second or third round of the draft, but maybe eventually down the road we can bring him in. So they had notes on Sternberger because they did their due diligence on him. It's the same thing with the running back that they brought in. He was
Evans.
Yes, he was someone that was a virtual interview because at that time the pandemic was in full swing and they couldn't go on top 30 visits. So the Bills did their due diligence on these players. And Andy Isabella is coming in here for a workout tomorrow. And I'll have to go back and look at my notes because I keep track of that year by year, who's come in, who's visited, and to see if Bills or, did any due diligence on him when he came out too.
Little note on Darrington Evans, getting a little work at punt returner today, which is what we talked about is maybe a little bit of extra juice that he can bring as Brandon Bean called him a home run hitter. It was him and Deontay Hardy back there today, which I thought was interesting. I didn't see Shakir working today, so that's going to be something that we track.
Yeah, that is very interesting. And, Darrington Evans was a very good return man when he was at Appalachian State. Didn't get as many opportunities in the NFL, did mostly kick returns in his first year in Tennessee, had about 9 of them in his second season. So someone, though, that could come in and if he shows what his worth as a kick returner, punt returner, could claim that final spot on the 53-man roster when all is said and done.
All right, what else we got? Anything else question-wise before we get out of here?
We hit up a lot of them. I actually had a Reggie Gilliam question. Anything with Reggie Gilliam?
Nice catching the today, and a Reggie Gilliam catch. I can't get into the details of how it happened, sure. Where it was or anything like that. But he's just Mr. Consistent,
right?
Like every time you look at him on the sideline, it's like, a lot of people try to like write him off the roster, which I did last year,
Mhm.
and by accident, because like
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't have the fullback category in my article, so it just like omitted him. I would have put him on the roster had I known, but it just was kind of just like a little bit of an error. But he's just like, he shows up, he makes plays. Not a lot to report on Reggie Gilliam, but listen, they love him.
Yeah.
He's one of their special teams aces. I think he's low key sneaky lock still.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. And, you know, they have all these mouths to feed on offense, but if you look at his first 3 years in this league, the last 2 years, he went from 14% of the offensive snaps to 17%. Obviously, as a rookie, he wasn't very involved in the offense. He had a few snaps here and there, but he is a core special teams player. He is a great special teams player for this team. We know how much they value that. I think he is, like you said, a low-key lock still to this point. I would be very surprised if he was not on this final roster.
I'll be very surprised if half of the people watching this live stream right now don't go up and sign up to be a Shout Buffalo Bills insider text member. Do it right now. You'll get a free 2-week trial all throughout training camp. You'll get all of our practice reports. Ryan and I are going to be boots on the ground tomorrow.
Yeah.
If you are thinking about joining this thing, tomorrow's the day to start. Tonight, get ready, because we're going to be firing off text all day tomorrow. You're going to be at work. You're going to be getting updates on who's on the first team, who's playing where, what's happening, who's making the big plays, what are our thoughts on all of it. Just go to joinsubtext.com/Shout Buffalo Bills or text 716-528-6727. That'll lock you in for a 2-week free trial. Boom, there we go.
Perfect time.
All right, he's Ryan Talbot in the dorm room. We're going to set up these bunk beds here, post a picture of it. It's going to be a great time. See you guys tomorrow. Take care, everybody.